I'm a lawyer and criminologist. I've been studying economic crime and corruption around the world. It's particularly painful to look into Greece, even though I've been away for 35 years. Now, the conventional story about the Greek crisis and the debt is that it's due to domestic corruption, tax evasion, and a Greek mentality of not working too hard and just taking care of oneself, clientelism, and therefore don't expect much to change anytime soon. Well, yes, corruption exists in Greece, but not just inside Greece. The way I see the story is rather different, and you have to look at a number of other things as well. You have to look at how the debt was created, who contributed to that, how the debt was hidden for public view, what kind of solutions were applied, what contributed to those, if there were solutions at all. Was actually Greece bailed out or somebody else? And as we go through this, some ideas will come to mind on what can be done about that, because there is hope, and we must pursue the change. It is feasible, and we have to defeat defeatism, and I will show you why and how. Now, starting with corruption in Greece. Corruption is the misuse of private or public power and authority for personal gain. And we have a lot of things people are familiar with. Fakelaka, the little envelopes that you give someone in order to get things done a little faster. Speed money, get treatment at the hospital, get clearance customs faster. This is the sort of thing that is widespread and normalized in the sense that people do it without thinking that there is much wrong about it, especially if the doctor or other salaries are not at real living standards. Then we have other forms of corruption, quite serious, bribery from domestic and foreign companies bribing domestic politicians. We have oligarchic controls over industry, sports, media, political finance, and so on. We do have tax evasion. We do have problematic privatizations. We even fix soccer matches. So generalized and so easy to discover things are that Lake Pais was drained in the mid-50s. And in 2010, there still existed an agency with a number of people employed, advertising for new employees every year, with a president who had a permanent driver. That was in 2010. So the general picture here is that we have a problem of overgrown administration, clientelism, overregulation, inefficiency, the oligarchic controls, and that leads to this widespread culture of tolerance, especially when corruption solves practical problems in everyday life. All this leads to shortfalls in revenue and a trust deficit both in government and business. But is this enough? Does that explain the crisis? As you will see, that is not the case. The overspending Greeks were not doing more, they were doing actually less than other Eurozone members. There was only one area where we did overspend. That was military. We created 40 billion euro between 1995 and 2009, among other things, buying submarines from Germany. Well, we didn't need submarines. Greece was already underwater. Look at how the debt grew from 1981 to the time that the bubble burst. And this was driven not by domestic banks, which did have a lot of debt at the beginning, but gradually it was foreign banks, especially French and German banks, that got in the game, and it was a supply-driven growth of debt from the mid-90s to the 2010. And then Greece could not meet the criteria of the euro, And therefore, they had to make it up. They had to cook the books, and they got assistance from an American financial institution that applied rules that Eurostat actually approved. It was legal. These are the practices that they are according to the letter of the law, but when you look at the consequences, they're worse than crime. These are the lawful but awful practices that I referred to. And then the crisis was recognized, and we had the IMF and we had the European institutions coming to apply their cure, even though the IMF knew full well from the beginning that the debt in Greece was not sustainable. They went through violating their own rules because they cannot participate in something that's unsustainable, and applied the austerity measures, which led to massive unemployment, cuts in public services, health, and so on. Capital left Greece, no foreign investment came in, poverty and inequality grew, depression, drug use, suicides, all went up. Look at just the facts. This is the government spending, how it goes down. This is the unemployment that goes up to above 25%. Especially among those under 25, it goes beyond 60%. All economic classes see their income drop substantially. Poverty skyrockets. Those at risk, especially those children under 6 and young people under 18, are at risk of poverty, 49% of them. Inequality goes up, health expenditures go down, HIV rates move up, suicide rises, and look at what the economy does. It tanks 25% down. Now, who wins out of this? Of course, then people start looking for jobs in Australia, Europe, and the United States. But who actually got something out of that? The euro was saved for a while. The banks were bailed out. And a German study found that the German treasury benefited from the Greek crisis by 100 billion euro because their borrowing costs went very low as well. So if Greece defaulted completely, Germany would only lose 90 euro out of that, which means that they would be better off by at least 10 billion euro. Now, is this the bailout of Greece? Really? And a German minister said, some states apparently believe they bear no responsibility and are under no obligation to participate in the joint response to the current great challenge. But he was not referring to the Greek crisis, it was the migration crisis, about which EU rules got a little flexible because of hundreds of thousands of refugees. But there was no flexibility in applying EU rules to the millions of Greeks who were suffering under those. So I submit to you, when the law produces results that bring about such misery, these laws must change. Insisting on applying the same rules, the same projects, the same programs that actually bring about the opposite results from those stated amounts to regulatory fundamentalism, not among the core values of the European project. So we have toxic loans, toxic medicine, toxic mining, toxic diesel cars, toxic media comments, toxic political and business cultures. So we need some detoxification all around. We need to rethink inside and outside Greece. While we do this, we need to take a look at context. What's wrong with this car? Too many people on a badly maintained car. A very good rule, traffic rule, says you can't do that. It's bad for safety, it's bad for the car. But consider this. These people are coming from the village where there are no jobs, no public transportation, no means to buy another way of getting from home to work and bring some food to the table. Not giving them a ticket, not impounding the car. It's not because a traffic warden is on the take. It is because he understands, he sympathizes. In the same way, you can't fight corruption on an empty stomach. You can't fight corruption when salaries are below real living standards and people are looking left and right for solutions. You need to prioritize, you need to find what you do first, what you do second, and you need to start fixing the economy at the same time. Greece is not alone in trying to fight corruption, but all around the world we are failing. And there are signs about this everywhere. People are going after political opponents instead of equally applying the law to everyone. High officials enjoy impunity, and we go after middle and low-level officials. All kinds of metrics we use are disappointing. We have more bureaucracy, more complexity in law, more formalism over substance and the real goals, why we have the rules and the processes in place. And we even have new motives, opportunities, and incentives to engage in corruption. These are World Bank Institute's metrics of governance for the entire world. And you can look at corruption at the bottom right. If you are looking at the pulse of a patient, that patient is dead. Why? No real political will, no looking into the causes. Society at large is not participating. You have solutions from the top or from outside the country. One size fits all there for solutions. Too much law. No strategic approach. What we do first, what we do second, and who has what role about these things. We just fragment the way in which we fight corruption to multiple agencies that get in the way of each other. And educational institutions don't do enough to promote a culture of integrity and capacity in societies to actually have the skills that it takes to make things different. So, we're drilling holes in the water, we waste resources, everything we do is unsustainable, and changes, whatever they are attempted, and they are in many, many places, they lose momentum, credibility, and legitimacy. Here, in Greece, there is the chance, the opportunity right now to set an example of how to do things differently and well. But there are challenges, and there are needs. Greece is in the intensive care indeed. Long-term thinking is actually a luxury, especially as government is being micromanaged right now. But we need to tackle a humanitarian crisis. We need to have an accurate diagnosis of the problem, inclusive diagnosis, which means that not just the government, all political parties, private sector, civil society, media, academics need to participate in what's the problem and what are the possible solutions. And we need the best brains to make the country healthy again. You don't want to be operated by a first-year student, by established doctors, right? We need some good plans and advocacy in the face of both regulatory fundamentalism from outside and resistances that we will certainly have inside Greece. But even though we have a plentiful world, Greece cannot enjoy it and is pushed into isolation and blame also from the outside. This isolation and vulnerability is captured well in a film in a scene of a film, Taxidis στα Κύθυρα, Trip to Kythera, of Aggelopoulos. And let's take a look at it.
Κι όλο περιμένει πάλι τη στιγμή να ξαναρθεί το καράβι στο λιμάνι θα φανεί θαλασσινό πουλί στα όνειρά μας.
Let us not abandon Greece and the vulnerable in the mist. We can do better than that. And the steps to build momentum and credibility are right in front of you. We need genuine political will at the top, government and government agencies. We need to all together come up with priorities and solutions. Just as the patient going to intensive care needs the ambulance driver, the nurses, the doctors, the surgeons, the anesthesiologist, all of us have a different role to play to take care of the patient. It is a collective action challenge on how we bring competition, transparency, and some accountability in this place. Some long-term planning, small successes that lead to the next step and where we want to be in 5, 10, 20 years. Simpler laws, stronger institutions, and open government. There are already good programs in Greece, such as the Avia and ELAC, and I invite you to support them. Coordinated fight against corruption and research institutions to build the capacity and the culture of integrity we need. We need accountability. Those who actually are on the take, they need to be sanctioned. But we also have to look at the positive. Where do we have the good examples like the ones I mentioned? We need to create those islands of integrity. We monitor what we do. We change the strategy as we go. And yes, the one thing that people cannot take from Greece is hope. Hope is there. There are practical answers and solutions in many countries. Those islands of integrity you find from Romania to Colombia, from Indonesia to the Philippines, from Nigeria to Venezuela. So together, we can get from the full catastrophe to a rebirth of the Greek spirit. We need solidarity, sustainable reforms, trust in government and business, economic growth, and good governance. Eunomia is the word. Eunomia is a Greek word. Let's practice it in its birthplace. Thank you.